Let me ask you first. You were appointed, weren't you, as a forensic auditor? You were called in by the Post Office to conduct an independent investigation. That was after being approached by victims and by MPs. Among your many interesting, fascinating findings, you found clear evidence that accounting systems at individual post offices were accessed remotely, often after hours. And this is a very important point. Did you find evidence that managers within the post office knew that postmasters and postmistresses were being wrongly accused of fraud?
Yes, I did. Jo Hamilton was perhaps the key case, where there was an internal report that was withheld from her, where the investigator said, I found no evidence of theft. Notwithstanding that, Jo Hamilton was charged with theft by the Post Office.
From the man who gave us this.
Vast majority of people will have the same gender as their biological sex, but a small number won't. A small number won't. A small number won't.
Ed Davey has got a lot to answer for. He was Post Office Minister between 2010 and 2012 in the midst of the Post Office debacle, where more than 700 branch operators were wrongly prosecuted between 1999 and 2015.
Ed Davey, there he was, from 2010 to 2012, he was the minister responsible for post offices. That was at the time when the first really big wave of convictions took place. And yes, Mr. Bates of ITV fame wrote to Davey no fewer than 5 times. 5 times.
Why not draw a line and just apologise? Can you apologise to Sub Postmasters?
Of course, I regret.
That's not logic.
Well, I've said of course. I think it really is.
In 2017, 500 postmasters teamed up to launch a group litigation against the Post Office, which responded in turn in 2019 by hiring attack dog lawyers of the blue-chip city firm Herbert Smith Freehills HSF to fight its corner. The Daily Mail can disclose that in the very same year the group action was launched, 5 years after Davey had behaved so shamefully as a minister, he was himself hired by HSF.
Just say sorry for your part in not having all the answers.
My heart goes out to the hundreds of people
who
were him.
One last chance to say sorry.
Of course I regret what happened. Regret.
But what is clear is that Ed Davey was being paid £5,000 a month by HSF. Now he'll say it's for political advice, but the very same firm that the Post Office were hiring to try and stop 500 postmasters from overturning their guilty verdicts. I have to say that from Ed Davey, this at the very best is a gross error of judgment. So can Ed Davey survive?
Just say sorry for your part in not having all the answers.
My heart goes out to the hundreds of people who were him.
One last chance to say sorry.
Of course I regret what happened. Regret what happened. Of course.
Was approached by Postmaster Alan Bates, whom he dismissed and told him that there was nothing wrong with the Horizon IT system. Ed told him, I don't believe the meeting would serve any purpose. Ed now blames the Post Office for apparently not telling him the truth, which shows that he was either incompetent or gullible. Well, even now, knowing the full situation, he still refuses not only to apologise, but also refuses to resign, which is ironic, as he's repeatedly called for others to do so for arguably a lot less. In the last 5 years, Ed has called ministers, MPs, BBC executives, and in fact, he even called for the entire board of Thames Water to resign. In fact, Ed has notched up a total of 34 since 2019, of which 18 were demands for Boris to go. Yet Ed remains defiant. None of this post office fiasco is his fault, despite being post office minister at the height of the scandal and despite refusing to speak to concerned postmasters. Sally Stringer, a former postmistress in Gloucestershire, said that she had a letter which proved that Ed was fully aware of the Horizon scandal when he had ministerial responsibility for the post office.
The Horizon post office scandal saw hundreds of innocent people sent to prison. People like a former constituent of mine who went to jail for 3 years. Now, during this scandal, the leader of the Liberal Democrats was the minister in charge of the post office. In charge of the post office. This is the same Liberal Democrat leader who in the past has called for the resignation of over 30 prominent people in this country who have made mistakes in their job. So does the Prime Minister agree with me that the leader of the Lib Dem should take his own advice and start by clearing his desk, clear his diary and clear off?
One last chance to say sorry.
Of course I regret what happened. Regret.
That's not an apology.
Fujitsu would like to apologise for our part in this appalling miscarriage of justice. We were involved from the very start. We did have bugs and errors in the system, and we did help the Post Office in their prosecutions of the Sub-Poastmaters. For that, we are truly sorry.
So I've got in front of me, Mr. Patterson, the Fujitsu Code of Conduct. It says, we treat customers, business partners and competitors fairly and with respect. Did you live up to those values when it came to the Sub-Postmasters?
No, we did not. It is very clear from the evidence before the committee and also in the inquiry that our standards were not at the level that we adhere to and state, as you've rightly read.